Now, we're about to speak to someone from a different group, a similar name, but it is a different group and they have quite a different position on this subject. Scott Driscoll is from the Retailers Association. Good morning.
Good morning, Belinda.
Now, you don't want 7-day trading to be extended into Toowoomba. Why?
Well, Belinda, let's just start off by getting this really clear for everybody. We represent around 5,000 independent retailers right across Australia, and 7-day trading, as was just admitted by the other speaker, is actually allowed in Toowoomba as we speak. It's shopping centres, if they wanted to, would be allowed to open and provide access for consumers to independent retail outlets and exempt retail outlets. It's a choice they make not to open because rightly so, the Coles and the Woolworths of this world in Toowoomba are not allowed to open. And there's a very good reason for that, and that is in Toowoomba there is simply not the commercial demand for 7-day trade to allow a viable independent retail sector, which is that last line of defence for consumers, to make sure that prices are kept down. If the demand was there, we wouldn't have a problem with it. The very point is a lot of stores that are allowed to open, even shopping centres at the moment that are allowed to open of a Sunday, don't, because the consumer demand is simply not there.
But wouldn't they still have that choice if this commission ruled that 7-day trading should be allowed across the board? Wouldn't they still have that choice to open or not to open?
Well, they would, Belinda, but the previous speaker talked about level playing fields. That's an absolute furphy. If you're talking about a Coles or a Woolworths or a Myers or the similar type of organisation being able to open on a Sunday, they know very well they will not make profits on a Sunday in Toowoomba. They know that right now. Their objective is very clear. It is black and white. They will open on a Sunday if allowed, and offset those losses against their chain stores elsewhere in Australia for as long as it takes to wipe out those independent Toowoomba businesses, and then there is no last line of defence on pricing for consumers. Then they will charge higher prices. We see it right around the country where competition does not exist for those major retail chains.
What about the responsibility of consumers, though? If there is that problem where the big chains, like the big companies, are trying to push out the smaller operators, isn't it up to the consumers to make that choice to support local businesses?
Well, Belinda, it is, and the bottom line it is, and that is the message that we are trying desperately to get out to people. But there's an awful lot, there's hundreds of millions of dollars spent by these major national retail chains to convince people otherwise. Now, these are dollars that simply, and advertising is a very, very powerful mechanism to create habits in retail, and that is exactly what needs to be broken. We've got a situation in this country right here, right now, today, that 80% of the grocery sector, the supermarket grocery sector, is locked up and controlled by Coles and Woolworths. As a result, Australians, Toowoomba people, pay the highest rate of inflation on food in the entire OECD, the entire Western world. This is unprecedented anywhere else. We don't have consumer protection laws in this country that are afforded to other advanced developed nations throughout the Western world.
But I certainly take your point, Scott, and don't necessarily disagree with you. But, for example, I choose to go to farmer markets simply because of that reason, of the Coles and Woolworths lock-up. Surely you need to put some trust into consumers that if they're open 7 days, then they make the choice to support local businesses, to buy where they want to buy.
Belinda, it's not working. I mean, where there is that choice, and choice is a very emotive word here, and it's not about choice per se immediately. What we're talking about, though, is wiping out choice. If Coles and Woolworths in Toowoomba and the Kmarts of this world and the major retail chains that are like them, if they're allowed to open, carte blanche, this is a stepping stone for them. And I would say to you, this is a strategy that is used throughout regional Queensland by this duopoly, where they have development and expansion plans, where they want to wipe out competition. It's about maintaining choice for consumers, because in the medium to long term, if this thing gets up in Toowoomba, consumers won't have choice because simply the independent retailers that are pushing prices down won't be there. The choice will be gone.
What's your involvement in the hearing by the Industrial Relations Commission?
We are the official respondents to this. We've got staff on the ground in Toowoomba pushing this case in the Commission over the next few days, and certainly have called witnesses to account and put forward some very strong arguments, local businesses, but also expert witnesses from around the country, to put some very strong arguments why this sort of push in an area like Toowoomba, one, won't be sustainable, and two, will be disadvantageous to consumers and certainly to the small business community in Toowoomba in the medium to longer term.
What about the argument that consumers are already making the choice and travelling to, for example, Brisbane to shop on weekends?
Belinda, it's a furphy. There is no substantial evidence whatsoever to suggest that people are jumping in the car to go for a shopping trip en masse down to Toowoomba. I mean, that is just a nonsense that's being put about by Coles, Woolworths, the NRA, which is the front organisation for Coles and Woolworths in this instance. Now, you know, that's not to say that people who would otherwise be down from Toowoomba in Brisbane won't walk into a shop. You know, of course they might. But to suggest that this is some basic, you know, mass consumer demand-driven thing is just a nonsense.
It's been said that because the application is only for Toowoomba City itself, it will have a better chance of getting up. What are your thoughts on the decision? Are you confident that your side, so to speak, will win?
Belinda, there's a few things, a couple of real points that feed into that. I think the council conducted a survey about 12 months ago that showed an overwhelming rejection of this proposal. I've got to say that the council's, in my view, mishandling of this and their communications to the Commission of that overwhelming rejection has been absolutely dumbfounding. We've already seen in the Commission yesterday, and this is at odds with what the council thought, against better advice, but what they thought and argued was going to be sufficient. We told them, if you've got a position on this, which clearly should back your own survey, you need to front up to this Commission, put up a witness and back your own survey. They refused for reasons better known to them. We're now seeing in the Commission, allegations that the council's letter, which basically included the results of the survey that they did, can't be seen as evidence unless we bring it into evidence in some other way. The council has let the people down yet again on this issue, and it is not up there reflecting on the front line the views they know very well to be the views of the local Toowoomba people, and that is to reject the Coles Woolworths duopoly and their like organisations from getting a bigger, stronger stranglehold on the Toowoomba market.
Are you saying that that, in fact, could mean that you will lose the case, Scott?
Oh, Belinda, you never know what the outcome of these things will be. There's so many variations, but certainly the council hasn't helped the cause of those people who they surveyed and overwhelmingly rejected the application from the big end of town.
We'll see what happens. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks, Belinda.
That's Scott Driscoll. He's from the Retailers Association. And you're listening to Belinda Sanders on ABC Southern Queensland. As you heard, the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission is in town hearing submissions yesterday and today on 7-day trading in Toowoomba. What are your thoughts? 25% is the estimate of shops that already open on Sundays in Toowoomba. Would it make any difference if more opened? What are your thoughts? 1300 747 222. What about the argument that it will disadvantage local businesses? Is it up to the consumer to make the choice? And if they choose to support a business that is not local, then they, therefore, in the long term, suffer the consequences of that monopoly. Should we be putting more trust into the local community to shop in the right area? 1300 747 222 is the number to call. If you'd like to comment on the 7-day trading issue, of course, the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission is in town at the moment, so share your thoughts on the subject. 1300 747 222. Now, are you concerned that if it's introduced in Toowoomba City itself, then eventually it will start to spread out from there to other communities outside of Toowoomba that currently aren't included in that application? 1300 747 222.